Dr. Saurabh, this Paul Peters, Dr. Prabhuda Ganguly, Dr. Naresh Kumar, Dr. Irvani, distinguished participants in this 28th convention of the Society of Information Science with a special conference on Patinformatics. Ladies and gentlemen, it's a special privilege and an honor to be here this morning. I remember there was a time when I would keep on speaking about polymers, and somebody, I think it was Dr. Mohan Ram, who introduced me in Indian National Science Academy as not Mashelkar but as polymer there. Because that year I remember having given some 33 or 34 talks on polymers. Subsequently, somebody introduced me as not Mashelkar but as Patinformatics. And the reason was, again, I was just speaking about patents all across the country. I am thankful to Rajivani for once again allowing me to assume this role of patent, because it's after a long time that I am speaking on patent, something which has been very close to my heart. I'd like to begin by first congratulating the Society of Information Science as well as our very own CSIR-URDIP for organizing this wonderful event, Patinformatics for Research and Business Planning. There are three key words here. One is research, second is business, and third is Patinformatics. How do they relate to each other? I have a very simple way of looking at it. What does research do? It converts money into knowledge. What does business do? It converts knowledge into money. Simple. So it is converting, by doing research, money into knowledge, and then creating a business which is knowledge-based, where you convert the knowledge into money. But not all knowledge can be converted into money. It has to be monetizable knowledge. That only can be converted into money. Now, what is the fundamental condition for monetizing? Supposing you have property, can you sell it? You can't, unless you own it. So, unless you have rights on anything that you wish to monetize, you can't sell it. And that is where patents come in. Because patents provide you the rights on the intellectual property that you have created. And what we are then talking about is informatics based on this vast information on patents. So I feel this is a golden triangle of research, business, and patent informatics. So I'd like to congratulate you for conceptualizing this wonderful meeting which brings together all this. I'm also very happy that you are meeting in a very wonderful laboratory with a great history in the way it has advanced chemical science, but also used it for the good of the people, as you see. That's the purpose of this laboratory, stated in a very simple way. And while using it for the good of the people, of course, it is for creation of wealth, it is creation of social good. And this laboratory has been a pioneer in patents, in intellectual property rights. So, Paul, we are actually privileged to be in this auditorium, in this laboratory, which has been a trendsetter for this country of 1.2 billion. If one goes back, you will see, for example, CSR and patents were linked together even before Mashelkar came on the scene. But people sometimes tend to give you credit where credit is not due. CSR's first patent was granted 70 years ago, 1940. CSIR was a repository of Indian patent documents for a long time. In fact, the patent office, out of 37 labs today, 20 labs were repositories of patents because they were physically all stored by them. The copies used to come. That was not a digital age. It was a paper age. So, for example, right here in this particular library, am I right, everybody? Used to have stacks of these patent documents. That word had changed, of course. Right? And people used to come here and refer to these. And Himali this morning or this afternoon was showing me how we used to take notes, write down the numbers and tick mark them, doing everything manually at that point in time. To some extent, the word had changed, of course, as we have moved towards the digital world. So I think the point I want to make is that patent was not something that was unfamiliar with the CSIR system. After all, we are a Council of Scientific and Industrial Research, aren't we? And therefore, it follows that anything connected with intellectual property rights should be natural to us. But then, what was the difference? I think the difference was that you require a competitive environment in which innovation flourishes. And it's only when innovation flourishes that everything else follows. And that includes intellectual property rights. And until we got our second freedom in 19, remember, Saurav, that we started giving 5,000 rupees, a certificate, and a silver medal to anybody who got a US patent. Because power, at that time, to get a US patent was something big. When we began, there were hardly one or two people who used to come and take away the award. Within 5 to 6 years, there were 20, 25, 30, and then we stopped. It was becoming too expensive for the award. But the purpose was served because there was an awareness, because what happens in a laboratory is that you are always waiting for a signal. What matters? Right? And that was the time we changed the paradigm. We said not publish or perish, patent, publish and prosper, in that order. Right? So when a breakthrough on solid-state polymerization came, of course we published a paper in macromolecules, but only after the US patent was found. This was the cultural beginning. And this virus, if I may put that word, spread across the CSIR world. And I made sure that that virus spread virally when I became the DG of CSIR in 1990. We were ahead of our time, I feel sometimes, because I remember in mid-90s or early 90s, we started what is called as a value-added patent information service. WAPIS. Naresh, you remember? For what? For helping the industry. For the precise reason that you all have gathered together, because we wanted to tell them, look, the information that is contained in patents is so valuable in your strategic thinking, in your strategic planning, in your business diversification, and so on. But believe me, there was no takers. And of course, at that time, we didn't have the digital technology, so we are talking about CD-ROMs, which are very expensive at that time. Am I right, Nima? So this laboratory was always ahead in terms of thinking sources, all right, and reading. I will say myself that I myself remember coming back in 76 November and finding conditions where the country didn't have foreign exchange, and therefore for importing anything we used to require not manufactured in India certificate, a DGTD clearance. And I remember my first rheogoniometer. It took 2 years for it to come, and I had the important challenge of do I sit waiting for the rheogoniometer to start my rheology, or do I do something by using the only thing God has given me, which is this. And I started modeling and simulation, and I remember doing polycrystalline direct reactor modeling for a company, getting deeper into it and developing software which was rather unique at that time. It has become a technical stuff now. And believe me, for validating those models, I use patents, information in patents. So Suppose if you go back to my 1978 papers which I have now, you'll find in those scientific research papers there will be a cross-reference patterns. It doesn't happen. Normally, in patterns we will find reference to scientific research papers, but our scientists are very unaware of this vast information that exists in patterns which never gets published as scientific research papers many times. You know, people don't just access that. So when we talk about the pioneering role of this laboratory or some of these things started, I'm just giving these examples to say how this laboratory was very critical in sort of moving forward.